Shabbat Shalom. Chris Smith, Shabbat Shalom, family. Right. You ready? You ready for this one? Well, it's the close of Shabbat. Close of Shabbat, depending on your time zone. Depending on your time zone, it's the close of Shabbat. But we're going to close it out in style. We're going to close it out just as well. Still. So I'm trying to see where I'm going here. Boom. Genesis. Boom. Boom. Genesis. Boom. Jasher. Boom. We're not even going to Enoch. This for next time. Trayvon Spark, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, family. Welcome to the show. Peter Collins, Shabbat Shalom. Appreciate that. Hit that like button. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get started, guys. Let's go ahead and get started. Abba Yah, in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Ruach HaKodesh, we bless your holy name. We lift you up, Father. We praise you. Father, we ask that you just wash us in the water of your word. Cover us in your blood. Take us deep in your word. Give us knowledge and wisdom and understanding, O greater Father. Your word says the Ruach brings all things to memory, O greater Father. You said that we have an unction from the Holy One and we know all things, O greater Father. Fill us right now with your Holy Ghost. Fill us with your Spirit. Open our minds to understanding. Give us wisdom, O greater Father. Let your light direct our path. We bless you, Father. We praise you. Bless everyone who's tuning in to join the show. Bless everyone who's come in to listen and to learn. And bless all those who come in to fellowship, O greater Father. Let your mercy and favor fall upon everyone. Under the sound of my voice, I give you the praise, the honor, and glory. Bless your holy name. Activate us to do your perfect will, even right now, even today, in love and in life. We give you praise, the honor, and the glory. In the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, who is Jesus the Christ. Thank you for it. Amen and amen. Amen. So how's everybody doing? Well, you see what the title is. Lamech of CAIN. Polygyny. Lamech of CAIN was the first one in Scripture to have two wives. So we'll be getting into that. We're going to get a few different perspectives on that. So far we've learned about Adam and Eve, We've learned about Cain and Abel and Seth. Adam is dead. Abel is dead. Seth is dead. Cain is still alive currently. So we're going to continue. Go through the bloodline a little bit. Go through the history. We've been learning about the priesthood and how it's passed down and how to get the authority to be able to use it. And so hopefully you'll be edified today. You'll learn a lot. Hopefully this will be information you never thought of or never seen. And hopefully it'll build your understanding. And I pray that you apply it. Everything that you learn, that it becomes an application of your daily life from now and even in the future, and to future generations as well. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. So we're going to go to the book of Genesis. Book of Genesis, chapter 4. And we're going to start off, we're going to do verses 16 through 18. Michael Bennett, Shabbat Shalom, brother. All right. Celebrating your birthday? All right, man. Bless you, man. Bless you. Happy birthday to you. Yes, all right. Appreciate your Pris. Genesis 4. And this is the lineage, starting from Cain again. We're not starting from one. That'll be the birth of Cain. All right. And Genesis chapter 4, verse 16. Verses 16 through 18. And it reads like this. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and he builded a city, and he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mehujael, and Mehujael begat Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech. This would be Lamech of Cain. This is called Lamech of Cain. G-Dog, you need to get you some of this, man. You need to have your fringes on. Okay. So the last thing we have is Lamech of Cain, right? Lamech of Cain. So let's go to the book of Lamech of Cain. Shalom, Nikki A. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to the show. Let's go to the book of Lamech of Cain. The book of Lamech of Cain. We're going to hit a few things here, Pris. But first, we're going to go to Lamech of Cain, chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. Book of Lamech of Cain, chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. You got that, Chris? Or Peter Collins? Lamech of CAIN, chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. All right. And it goes like this. This is the book of Lamech, who lived in the city of Enoch. Now, we just read where Cain had built a city called Enoch, after his son, Enoch. And it says, this is the book of Lamech, who lived in the city of Enoch, who was the son of Methusael, son of Mehujael, son of Arad, son of Enoch, son of Cain, son of Adam. Cain, the forefather of Lamech, who was marked with leprous whiteness, for God had said, whomever slays Cain shall have vengeance visited upon their head sevenfold. As Abel's blood cried from the ground, same leprous whiteness was made a sign that was visited upon all of Cain's descendants, as it was their inheritance for 7 generations. Remember that 7 generations? For 7 generations. With this marked inheritance, Cain's descendants sought to do all that was wicked on the land in the sight of the Lord, for they had been marked by him. For the descendants of Cain had received unto themselves the damnation which was the fair portion of Cain's sin. And God refused to be angered by Cain's wickedness, for Cain was not forgiven. Cain was not forgiven. And so for 7 generations that was visited, it was extended. Usually the sins of the father are visited upon the sons to the 3rd and 4th generation. This one says for 7 generations. Okay. So verse 5 again. And God refused to be angered by Cain's wickedness, for Cain was not forgiven. And the descendants of Cain practiced all manner of evil, and did things that shall not be forgiven unto men. So God ignored the line of Cain, for they were of no use to him. Verse 7. And evil was in man's touch, so all the land touched by Cain and his marked descendants was brought unto desolation. And hail's breath. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, that's as far as I was going. I'm sorry. We ain't gonna read all of that. We was just going to verse 6. Okay. So let's go to chapter 2 now. Chapter 2. Lamech of CAIN, chapter 2. Lamech of CAIN, chapter 2. And we're going verses 19 through 26. Verses 19 through 26. Thank you, Peter Collins. Yeah. Okay, appreciate that, Chris. We're going to skip around to get to where we're trying to get to here. Just giving a little background on this guy, Lamech of CAIN, a descendant of Cain, basically. And so we just read about him over there in the 66 books in Genesis. Okay, so let's see. So we're going from here to 26 is, it has to be it. Yep, right here. Okay, so this second half here. Okay. So this is the book of Lamech of CAIN, chapter 2, starting at verse 19. And it reads like this. As a young man, Lamech sought the descendants of Seth to learn how to worship the Lord. Remember, Seth was the righteous line, right? Because Cain killed Abel. Cain was cursed. Cain left and went to Nod. And Seth was the righteous line after Abel, the one they fasted and prayed for to get a seed. And remember, Adam gave instructions for Seth to separate his seed from Adam. Okay, so let's start again. At verse 19, Lamech of CAIN, chapter 2, verse 19. And it goes like this. As a young man, Lamech sought the descendants of Seth to learn how to worship the Lord. Of all of the descendants of Seth, Jared, the father of Enoch, who was caught up. Now we're going to talk more about Enoch. We're gonna in the coming days, Lord willing, we're going to be going more into Enoch. He said, of all the descendants of Seth, Jared, the father of Enoch, who was caught up, was the only one who would speak with Lamech. How can the Lord see favor in me? Lamech asked Jared. Okay, so remember, they were told by first Adam told Seth, separate your kids and your grandkids, and it said forever. And Seth said the same thing. Seth said the same thing as he was passing, separate your kids and your grandkids. But it says Jared, the father of Enoch, was the only one who would speak to him, had mercy on him, had compassion on him, and tried to show him how to worship, tried to show him how to repent, tried to show him how to turn his heart towards the Lord. So let's read that again, starting at verse 19. And it says, as a young man, Lamech sought the descendants of Seth to learn how to worship the Lord. Of all the descendants of Seth, Jared, the father of Enoch, who was caught up, was the only one who would speak with Lamech. How can the Lord see favor in me? Lamech asked Jared. And Jared showed Lamech how to give praise and thanks and how to dress and burn sacrifice that pleases the Lord. And from that time forward, Lamech prayed to the God of Adam fervently in secret. See, he prayed in secret. Probably because his descendants were, they were doing so much evil, so much bad. They probably would say, what you doing, I don't know. But he prayed fervently, which means giving it all he has, giving it all he got. But it says in secret. Those two things, really, when you want to make an open confession of faith. But, I mean, he was cursed for 7 generations. He was part of that 7th generation. He wasn't going to get a breakthrough anyway. Lamech prayed to God of Adam fervently in secret because of the mark of CAIN upon him and the land he was in. God chose to not look at Lamech. He was cursed. Then Lamech did as much right as was possible with the corrupt land. He gazed upon the evil, but did not participate in it. Lamech did not rape. See, Lamech is saying that he was righteous because he didn't rape and stuff like that. That don't make you righteous just because you don't rape nobody. You see how sick that is? So, verse 24. Lamech did not rape. He did not steal. He did not turn his body over to the spirits or the giants for defilement. And the spirits and the giants were homosexual. And they did things to people. Everybody do what they want to do for money and power. Verse 25. Lamech would not enter the temples for pleasure or drink any of the potions that were offered to him. So those temples were like sex temples, orgy temples, and stuff like that that worship different gods, different fallen angels, different of the sons of God. And so Lamech said Lamech would not enter the temples for pleasure or drink any of the potions that were offered to him. Lamech did not worship the sons of God. Lamech did not worship the sons of God as the others did. For the sons of God practiced divination, spells, resurrection. They were unknown to Lamech. Damnation. Okay. So we know what was on the earth at that time. We've been going through this book. He was trying to be a good example. He was trying, but he fell under the curse as well. So, maybe on Judgment Day, but we'll see how he turned out, because you got to endure until the end, and he didn't endure until the end. So let's go to chapter 4. Lamech of CAIN, chapter 4. and we're doing verses 1 through 37. Lamech of CAIN, chapter 4, verses 1 through 37. Lamech of CAIN, chapter 4, verses 1 through 37. All right. Thank you, Peter Collins. Thank you, Chris. And it reads like this. And the sin swirled above both Lamech and Yuval. So Yuval was the giant. Now the giants were also illegal beings, because they were sons of the fallen angels, sons and daughters of the fallen angels. And most of them were physical giants. Some of them were not, but they were, the ones that weren't that big were really smart. So, but we'll read a little more about that as well. Anyway, Yuval was a friendly giant, and he had befriended Lamech of CAIN, and they both tried to worship God together. Sasha for God, Shabbat Shalom. So they both tried to worship the Most High together, and unfortunately for Yuval, he's a Raphaim. And Raphaim is like Valley of the Dead. He may have been resurrected from the dead or something. And a giant, and a son of the Nephilim, son of the fallen. So he's not going to be accepted. We'll get into Enoch's writings a little later, Lord willing. And Lamech is the seed of Cain, mark of Cain. So he's not being heard right now either. He's still within the 7 generations. So, but they're going to try. They're going to try. So let's start again at chapter 4. Lamech of CAIN, chapter 4, starting at verse 1. And it goes like this. And the sin swirled above both Lamech and Yuval the Rephaim, giant, like clouds forming, storm. Yet the earth knew not rain. Lamech considered to himself the evils of his own hands and the sins of the descendants of Cain. Lamech desired to commune with God as Adam had done. And as the line of Seth, he followed the ways that Jared had spoken of. Jared is the father of Enoch. We're going to hear a lot about Jared. He followed the ways that Jared had spoken of. And in secret, Lamech and Yuval the giant practiced what was right when they gave prayer and offerings. Both Lamech and Yuval became more saddened because there was no goodness about them and no chance for goodness in their life. And Lamech and Yuval observed the descendants of Seth and considered their worship of God, Lord. Verse 6. Darkness and living among the wickedness of the line of Cain caused the evils of Lamech and Yuval to grow and smolder in their hands, as it was at that time. Both Lamech and Yuval the giant would then lay their smoldering hands on beasts. See, they practiced craft, and their hands would start smoldering, and they would. And then some other stuff. I think that the language is kind of sanitized here. I think they would do certain things to these animals. Lamech and Yuval the giant. Verse 7. Both Lamech and Yuval the giant would then lay their smoldering hands on beasts and leave their sins upon the animals. And the beasts would die as the evils were imparted upon them. And say, as the evils were imparted into them / upon them. We know what's going on. And it came to be that when the sinful burdens of Lamech and Yuval the giant were great, the animal would burst into flames from their sinful touch, worship, majesty. Kingdom of the dark side. How far is we going with this? Chapter 4. Going all the way to 37. Okay, right there. Verse 9. Lamech and Yuval the giant climbed to the high places and laid their hands upon beasts and sacrificed them, as did the lineage of Seth. Now, Seth did they sacrifices different. They wasn't doing no evils. Now watch this. Imparting the evils, see? Imparting the evils that they carried in their hands to the sacrificial beast. But Lamech and Yuval the giant were upright as they sought the face of the Almighty. For both Lamech and the giant did not kill, nor rape, nor steal, nor worship the sons of God. The Lord would not turn his face towards them. For Yuval was a Rephaim, and Lamech had the leprous mark of CAIN. In this way, Lamech and Yuval the giant continued to sacrifice to the Almighty for years, but the Lord did not bother to hear them or respect their sacrifices. Cursed. So they were cursed like Cain. Cain was not forgiven. And they was wasting their time, in other words. Turned his back to him for 7 generations, the entire line of Cain. And the giant, he was an illegal body anyway. Your dad was from the fallen, so nah, you're illegal on earth. So verse 13. And both Lamech and Yuval the giant had prayed the way that Jared had shown them and sacrificed animals with open hearts to the Lord for 25 years. For 25 years. Their spirits were still untouched by him, for the Lord did not smile upon them, respect their sacrifices, or answer their prayers. What a stupid waste of time, Lamech lamented. And he had Leviathan destroy the place of worship that so he made a deal with the Leviathan. Okay. And then this was Lamech. Lamech of Cain made a deal with the Leviathan, which is the dragon, which we talked about already before I did a video on it. The beast, the 7-head, 10-horn beast. Okay. Verse 15. What a stupid waste of time, Lamech lamented. And he had Leviathan destroy the place of worship that he and Yuval the giant, the Lord of the Lord, had ignored them. And so Lamech and Yuval the giant chose to worship Leviathan. They chose to worship Leviathan. That they'd tamed. They claimed they tamed him. For the Leviathan was great in stature, male and female. Their skin was invincible. And Lamech and Yuval the giant then sacrificed to Leviathan and taught the sons of Cain and Seth. Taught them how to worship the serpent, the dragon. Taught the sons of Cain and Seth how to pass their children through the water. I heard of the water spirits and stuff like that. Through the water to Leviathan. And both of them sang out. He, Leviathan, spreads his sharp undersides in the mire, causes the deep to boil like a pot. He, Leviathan, makes the sea his own pot of ointment. He, Leviathan, makes a deep and hoary wake that shines in the water. There is nothing like Leviathan and his female on earth, for they were made without fear. Leviathan is king over this evil land, and all of us prideful inhabitants. When the beast reappears, well, the image of the beast reappears, it's going to enslave the prideful inhabitants and be the king of the land. We're just going to read a little bit more. I don't want to get too much into this Leviathan worship. It's like a whole psalm, song, or prayer or something to the thing, but I just want to get a little understanding about it. So, verse 24. Your 10th horn calls us to worship. Your 10th horn calls us to worship. You know, we spoke about the son of perdition the other day. The 10th horn, right? That's the little horn with the eyes like a man. And this is a antediluvial book, pre-flood. The thing's coming, guys. Mark of the beast. It's coming. Verse 24, your 10th horn calls us to worship. Let today be a holy day of worship. See how this, see what CAIN has done? Then flip the script. Got it almost sounding like you about to worship the Most High Yah. And then actually you're finna worship Ahaya. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Verse 25. Let today be a holy day of worship, and to give you the pleasure of consuming a firstborn male child. Huh? Consuming a firstborn male child? Sounds like what they did in Egypt. Sounds like what Herod was doing. Twisted the truth. Yeah, exactly. And we know that the priesthood is of the firstborn son, the priesthood of the Son of God. And they trying to sacrifice the firstborn son. You see how they twist it together? See what CAIN's doing? This stuff is. So let's read verse 25 again. Let today be a holy day of worship, and to give you the pleasure of consuming a firstborn male child. For we honor our children by giving them to you. Yeah, we give our children to the Most High Yah. We give them to the Lord. We don't sacrifice them like that. You see what I'm saying? He sacrificed his firstborn son for us. He died for us. You see how they try to, yeah, got to be careful, guys. Yeah, CAIN and his church. For we honor our children by giving them to you. We make you fat with our offerings of children. For we seek to worship Leviathan. We seek to worship you alone. You live in the sea, and you preserve it. And all of the host of the sea worship you as well. And then we see that in the book of Revelation, they talk about how the beast came out of the sea. And you notice all of these lands that we live on, you have citizenship. We're under admiralty law. Our law is of the sea, guys. Believe it or not. Okay. Verse 31. How far was I going? I don't want to get too far. I'm going to go a few more. Verse 31. Let all the people of the earth acknowledge the Leviathan and turn to him. That joker coming. Let all the nations of both Cain and Seth worship you. You're trying to get the good and the bad, the good and the wicked. Verse 33, let us give you our firstborn until you require it not. 34, and the profit in our death will be that as we live in the pit, you know they're going to the pit, we will worship you. As dust, we will proclaim your faithfulness. How great is your blank, blank, Leviathan, all the blank men by the sea. And that's where I'm stopping, right there. That's coming, guys. He's going to rule over the prideful men. Israel has to escape. We spring into action now. Don't wait until September when the second wave of this stuff happens. Spring into effect now. Just did 1 through 47, chapter 4. Okay. Let's go back to the book of Genesis, guys. Back to the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 4, verses 19 through 22. Genesis 4, 19 through 22. Thank you, Pris. Genesis 4, 19 through 22. And it reads like this. You know what? I'm gonna start a little bit before that. I'm just because even though we just read it, just to stay in the genealogy, we're still gonna go through verse 22, but I'm gonna start here at 16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord, and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived, and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mahujael, and Mahujael begat Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech. This is Lamech of Cain. Verse 19. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Adah, and the name of the other Zilhah. And Adah bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Okay. Lamech took unto him 2 wives. First one in scripture that did that. So we're just going to weigh out some things here, guys. We're going to weigh out some things. The Christian church says bad. They say every man's supposed to have 1 man and 1 woman. They say that's the design. So we're finna just find out what's written in these books. So let's go to the book of Jasher. The book of Jasher, chapter 2, verses 7 through 22. The book of Jasher, chapter 2, verses 7 through 22. Y'all have that? All right. Thank you, Peter Collins. Let's go ahead and go with it. And it reads like this. In those days, there was neither sowing nor reaping in the earth. This is talking about the days of Adam. Thank you, Chris. It's the days of Adam and Eve and Lamech, when Lamech of Cain was born. And in those days, there was neither sowing nor reaping in the earth. And there was no food for the sons of men. And the famine was very great in those days. Okay, so the famine, there was a famine, just like it's coming again now, right? Isaiah 4. We're going to see that. But a famine is coming now. Now, in those days, we're going to find out that there were more, the women were few. In these days, the women are many. It's flip-flopped. In those days, there were, a lot of people were having sons. In these days, son is going to be hard to find. So the famine was very great in those days. Verse 8. And the seed which they sowed in those days in the ground became thorns, thistles, and briars. For from the days of Adam was this declaration concerning the earth, of the curse of God, which he cursed the earth on account of the sin which Adam sinned before the Lord. So the trees wasn't just giving forth like it was in Eden. And then when they planted some, thorns and thistles grow up, briars. It wasn't just giving forth, the earth wasn't just giving forth in abundance like that because of the curse. Verse 9. And it was when men continued to rebel and transgress against God and to corrupt their ways, that the earth also became corrupt. Let's see if I can turn this just a little bit. That the earth also became corrupt. And Enosh lived 90 years, and he begat Canaan. And Canaan grew up, and he was 40 years old. And now Enosh is son of Seth, remember? Son of Seth, the righteous line. And he begat, so verse 10, and Enosh lived 90 years, and he begat Canaan. And Canaan grew up, and he was 40 years old. And he became wise. Righteous line, Canaan. And he became wise and had knowledge and skill in all wisdom. and he reigned over all the sons of men. And he led the sons of men to wisdom and knowledge. For Canaan was a very wise man and had understanding in all wisdom. And with that, his wisdom, he ruled over spirits and demons. Righteous line. He ruled over spirits and demons. And Canaan knew by his wisdom that God would destroy the sons of men for having sinned upon earth. And the Lord would in the latter days bring upon them the waters of the flood. And in those days, Canaan wrote upon tablets of stone. Canaan wrote upon tablets of stone. So we don't know what kind of stone this was. This could have been rocks. This could have been emerald tablets. That's stone. Could have been precious stone, you know. Could have been, he wrote upon diamonds or rubies. Who knows? But Shabbat Shalom, Cornelius Bennett. We don't know what he wrote upon, but we just know it was tablets of stone. And this is again antediluvial, pre-flood. Okay. So verse 13. And in those days, Canaan wrote upon tablets of stone what was to take place in time to come. And he put them in his treasures. He put them in his treasures. So that's what I'm saying. He might have wrote it on some onyx, some kind of precious stone if he put it in his treasures, not just no regular old rocks. You know, maybe even a jasper, smooth jasper or something. And he put them in his treasures. And Canaan reigned over the whole earth. And he turned some of the sons of men to the service of God. And when Canaan was 70 years old, he begat 3 sons and 2 daughters. And these are the names of the children of Canaan. The name of the firstborn, Mahalaleel. The second, Enon. The third, Mered. And their sisters were Adah and Zilhah. Adah and Zilhah. So remember the chart. Matter of fact, let me find that chart for y'all guys. We're gonna see that in just a second here. Adah and Zilhah. So these were the daughters of Canaan, descendant of Seth, the righteous line. The righteous line. So, hold up. I should have had that ready. I didn't think about it until now. I was like, man, you know what? I got the... But we're going to do it. Adah and Zilhah. Adah and Zilhah. Man, this thing, so I've been doing a lot of studying. I just got notes everywhere. So this thing must be at the bottom of the list somewhere. Adah and Zilhah. Is this it? Here it is, right here. Bloop, bloop. Boop, boop, be-doo. So I'm going to show it to you in just a second. So let's get back to the reading. So let's get back to the reading. I'm going to take a little sip of this water. I'm a little thirsty here. Appreciate the likes, guys. Appreciate the thumbs up. Helps us break the algorithm. I finally watched the video from the other day. It was so fake looking. It looked like when I was a kid, I used to watch Batman and Robin. You know, I say, pow, zap, bing, and they flash stuff on the screen. That's what it looked like when they took my stuff down. I'm like, man, this mess looks so fake, man. So I must have said something they didn't want to like. I mean, they didn't like. But anyway, so here we go. Verse 16. And these are the names of the children of Canaan. The name of the firstborn, Mahalaleel. The second, Enon. The third, Mered. Excuse me. And their sisters were Adah and Zilhah. These are the 5 children of Canaan that were born to him. Yeah. And Lamech, this is Lamech of Cain, the son of Methuselah, became related to Canaan by marriage. Lamech of Cain, right? Became related to Canaan by marriage. And he took his 2 daughters So he took the 2 daughters of Seth. I'm sorry, he took his 2 daughters. So Lamech took Canaan's daughters. Canaan of Seth. Lamech of Cain took his 2 daughters and married them. So these 2 bloop got sent over here. Bloop. So now let me show you the chart. Seth, the righteous line. Enos. Canaan. These are his 2 daughters. Okay, so over here you got Cain, Enos, Irad, Mehujael, Methuselah, Lamech. This is Lamech of Cain. These 2 daughters, he married them. And they bear these. And Tubal Cain, Jubal Jabal, and Nama. Who married Noah. That's what we're finna get into. In just a second. Maybe today, maybe not. But that's where we are. So verse 16 once more in the book of Jasher. And we're going to verse 22. Verse 16, and it says, and these are the names of the children of Canaan. The name of the firstborn, Mahalalel. The second, Enan. The third, Mered. And their sisters were Adah and Zillah. These are the 5 children of Canaan that were born to him. And Lamech, the son of Methuselah, became related to Canaan by marriage, and he took his 2 daughters for wives, and Adah conceived and bare a son to Lamech. And she called his name Jabal. And she again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Jubal. And Zillah, her sister, was barren in those days, and had no offspring. For in those days the sons of men began to trespass against God, and to transgress the commandments which he had commanded to Adam, to be fruitful and multiply in the earth. And some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught that would render them barren, in order that they might remain their figures. That they might retain their figures, and whereby their beautiful appearance might not fade. And when the sons of men caused some of their wives to drink, Zillah drank with them. And the childbearing women appeared abominable in the sight of their husbands as widows. And whilst their husbands lived, for to the barren ones only they were attached. Well, you know what? Yeah, we're going to pause right there. We're going to pause right there. Pause right there for the book of Jasher. And that was verse 22. So we know now. So we read over in Genesis and the book of Jasher in chapter 2. Lamech had 2 wives. Lamech had 2 wives. So we're going to go, let's go back. We're not going to even go with Naamah right now. Let's go back to the book of Lamech of Cain, chapter 7. Lamech of Cain, chapter 7. We're going to do the whole chapter, verses 1 through 16. Lamech of Cain, chapter 7, verses 1 through 16. Lamech of Cain, chapter 7, verses 1 through 16. All right, thank you, Peter Collins. And it reads like this. Thank you, Chris. And it says, there were less women in that time, and Lamech had 2 wives. Okay? Just explain what I just was talking about. There were less women in that time, and Lamech had 2 wives. For Lamech was exceedingly wealthy. He was exceedingly wealthy. And the wives knew that to marry, a woman should decide if it is for love or for wealth. Check that out. And the wives knew that to marry, a woman should decide if it is for love or if it's for wealth. Is it for love or is it for wealth? They said it was the woman's choice. That was her choice. And it's probably still like that today, in the world anyway. Zillah and Ada both chose to marry Lamech for wealth. All up in their business. And Lamech shamelessly uncovered himself before both of them, and they mocked him and said he was blank vain man. And they rejected his statutes and never listened to his blank. And they never followed their own. I'm sorry. They never listened to his blank, probably his orders or commandments or his whatever he wanted. They didn't listen to him. And they followed their own blank vanity and became vain themselves. And they encouraged the blank young men to lust after their blank nakedness when they bathed blank city of Enoch. So they were trying to entice the young men. They bathed naked, probably outside in the city of Enoch, the city that Cain built for his son, Enoch. Verse 6. How far are we going with this one? The whole chapter. Okay. Verse 6. Lamech learned that no man can serve two wives. Interesting. Lamech learned that no man can serve two wives, for either he will hate the one and love the other. That's what the scriptures say about no man can serve two masters, for either he will love the one and hate the other. They flipped it on here, but let's read that again. Lamech learned that no man can serve two wives, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Lamech could not serve both Zillah and Ada. Lamech himself loved with Ada, the mother of Jabal and Jubal. And while he was in love with Ada, Zillah vexed Lamech because she was jealous. Then Lamech in love with Zillah, and then Ada vexed him. And so both women deceived him, and they tricked him into leaving their beds. Zillah would say, "Tonight you stay with Ada." And upon arriving in Ada's chambers, Ada would say, "You belong in Zillah's bed." They married him for the money. They kicking him around, room to room. They probably weren't faithful. We'll see. Verse 10. And Lamech's life was such that he left his house often to spend time with Yuval the giant and the Leviathan. Verse 11. And when Lamech did finally go to the temple in the city of Enoch, he saw a temple prostitute that he liked, and he slept with her. Wow. He got two wives, and he goes to sleep with a prostitute. The wives were wicked. The wives were from the righteous seed, but they married for money. The love of money is the root of all evil. This guy got two wives and can't get no action in his own house. He got all the money in the world. He go out and sleep with a prostitute. Probably getting drunk with a giant. Verse 11. And when Lamech did finally go to the temple in the city of Enoch, and he saw a temple prostitute that he liked, and he slept with her, and he never kissed her or learned her name. And soon the temple prostitute became the only woman that Lamech thought of. Ain't that sad? Ain't that right, Pris? Hallelujah. Never married for money. And Zillah and Ada began allowing lustful young men into their tents. When Lamech learned of this, he sent forth his son Tubal-Cain. And it just says weapon, because Lamech wanted to murder these young men. He didn't want the Leviathan to do it. For Lamech desired to commit the sin of Cain. Wow. So now, before we leave that, let's go back over here again. And we're going to go back to verse 6. And it says, Lamech learned that no man can serve two wives, For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Lamech could not serve both Zillah and Ada. Turn to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 21. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 through 23. Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 through 23. All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it both. Appreciate both of you. And it reads like this, guys. Verse 15. If a man have two wives, okay, this is Moses, supposed to be Moses' writings, or the Most High may have written it. It's in Torah, it's law, Deuteronomy, governing how to have two wives. And it says in verse 15, if a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn, but he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. The right of the firstborn is his. So, what this is saying, if a man has two wives, and if one of them be hated, so this is not saying that necessarily one of your wives is going to be hated. It's saying if one be hated, that's not a reason to divorce her, right? It's not a reason to divorce her. You still have marital duties to uphold. And if she becomes pregnant and you have a son by her before you have a son by your other wife, a seed, an issue by your other wife, well, that's your firstborn son, even though it's by the hated wife. And he is to get the rights of the firstborn. So let's check this again. Verse 17. No, verse 16. Then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn, the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn, but he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father, or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of the city and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of the city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Verse 22. And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be to the death, thou hang him on a tree. Okay, I think I went a little too far there, but we get the picture. We get the picture. We get the picture. So there are, in other words, consequences for disobedience, yes. And also instruction for a man to have two wives given by the Most High Yah. So Lamech, the book of Lamech of Cain, like the book of Job, was before the law was given. It was before Moses, was actually before the flood. So we've looked at Jasher. We looked at Genesis. We looked at Lamech of Cain. We looked at Lamech of Cain. Let's go over here to the seal book. Oh, did we look at Jubilees? Nah, we don't have anything for Jubilees on that. Not right now. We don't have anything for Jubilees. Let's go to the seal book, guys. Seal book of Moses, chapter 3. And we're going to skip ahead a little bit. Seal book of Moses, chapter 3. And we're going to do verses 75 through 84. 75 through 84. Seal book of Moses, chapter 3. Verses 75 through 84. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Let's go ahead and get started. And this will basically close us out here, guys. This is all we're going to do on this. So, verse 75, and it reads, "Happened then, following the story of our first parents, that after the death of Abel, Cain proceeded to take one of his brother's daughters as wife for himself, and they both loved Satan more than God." Verse 75. "Happened then, following the story of our first parents, that after the death of Abel, Cain proceeded to take one of his brother's daughters as wife for himself, and they both loved Satan more than God. And thenceforward, along with many of his brothers, lived east of Eden, in a land that had first been inhabited by Nod, one of the first sons of Adam." That's an unknown fact. They called it Nod. We never knew why. This is one of the first sons of Adam and Eve. Nod. Okay. First sons of Adam. Nod. Where Nod settled with his offspring. Verse 76. "Cain and his wife had sons and daughters, and he built a city and gave her the name of his son Enoch, and created them according to their veneration, so that their offspring had the highest esteem, this evil one who is Satan as being God." Cain and was worshiping Satan as God. And they was trying to get everybody else to do it. Built a glorious city for Satan as their God. And the true God, he taught his children that this one was a postulation of evil. And I studied with some guys before that 20 years ago that knew that the 10 tribes were here, that there were hieroglyphs found here, Paleo-Hebrew and Coptic, knew that the 10 tribes were natives and all of this, but then at the same time, they had some Freemasons teaching, Freemason teachings, high Freemason teachings, and they was teaching that Lucifer was God. Lucifer was God. So It's kind of like they teach that a higher is God. Got to be careful, guys. Got to be careful. And that's the teachings of Cain. So let's read verse 76. Read verse 76 again. And it says, Cain and his wife had sons and daughters, and he built a city and gave her the name of his son Enoch, and created them according to their veneration, so that their offspring had in the highest esteem this evil one, who is Satan, as being God. And the true God, he taught his children that this one was a postulation of evil. And it came to pass that one of the sons of Cain had many sons, and he became king of this city. And of his sons there was Irad, from whom Mehujael proceeded. And from Mehujael came Methusael, from whom Lamech was born. Talking about Lamech of Cain. Whom Satan enticed to have two wives, Ada and Zillah. And with this, polygamy began among the sons of men. For Lamech had made a covenant with Satan, and to seal this covenant, he offered the innocent blood of Gibeah, a righteous man from the lands of Havilah, where there is abundance of gold that is on the banks of the river Pison. And together with this agreement, Satan proposed that he take a second wife to satisfy the diabolical and sensual feelings that permeated the heart of Lamech. Wow. So now we see that the first man to take two wives, Lamech of Cain, while Lamech tried to say he was so righteous, we see otherwise. We see otherwise. He took a wife because he did a deal with Satan. And back then the women were few. The women were few. And he did it out of greed and lust and gluttony. And for whatever reason, he did a deal with Satan. But we know that it's not wicked and it's not evil and it's not a sin, because otherwise, why would the Most High give laws on governing it, telling how to govern it, how to be righteous about it? So we also know that Israel came about by one man and four women, two wives, two sisters, and two concubines, which were the handmaids of each one of these wives. And that's how the 12 tribes came about. So we know that the Most High used it, so it can't be evil. If he gives laws on how to govern it, and that's how his chosen people came about, then that's not a practice that should be frowned upon. But the first man, the way he came about it, maybe it was wrong. Not even maybe, because it said he did a deal with the Satan. Okay. So verse 78. This Gibeah, in turn, was a righteous man among the sons of Adam, and he endeavored to preach repentance among the sons of Cain, from which Lamech improperly seized his ornaments of gold and precious stones, and took possession of his goods and animals, becoming the first thief. See, Lamech tried to say how righteous he was, but he was the first thief. Cain was the first murderer. Lamech, the first thief. Took possession of his goods and animals, becoming the first thief among the sons of men, and a murderer just as Cain, who also shed innocent blood to seal his covenant with Satan the devil in the manner of the order of Mahan, thus becoming a master of the order and lord of the great secret that had been given to Cain. Irad himself had been summoned to serve Lamech, and he had made him acquainted with the secrets which he had not restrained, and proceeded to tell the sons of Adam about the disgusting things that came from Satan, whom he had for God, and whom that at last they imprisoned the children of men under a degrading and miserable condition. This is what the beast system did. This is what it does. And this is what they're trying to do again when the son of perdition is revealed. So let's read that again. Verse 79. Irad himself had been summoned to serve Lamech, and he made him acquainted with the secrets which he did not restrain, and proceeded to tell the sons of Adam about the disgusting things that came from Satan, whom he had for God, and that at the last they imprisoned the children of men under a degrading and miserable condition, kind of like we locked in now. We under, what you call it, quarantine now, house arrest, whatever they want to call it. See, if this thing don't let up, then we know what they're implementing. And so Lamech killed Irad. You know how Lamech was trying to say he was so righteous, he didn't want to kill nobody and all this. Lamech killed Irad, his brother, to keep the secret combinations among the priests of the order of Mahan. Sacrificed them. And they still sacrificing to today. The secret societies, everybody who's trying to keep stuff secret, which has existed since the days of CAIN. Verse 80. And how far was I going with this? 84? Did I say 84? Yeah, 84. End of the chapter. Okay. Which had existed since the days of CAIN. Verse 80. It was then in these days of abominations among the sons of men, when they no longer kept the commandments of God, and the priestly precepts of the order of Mahan spread throughout all inhabited land. It spread throughout all inhabited land, that God raised up a righteous offspring again for Adam. And he went on to call him by the name of Seth. And when he was still a young man, God showed himself to Seth and commissioned him. And Seth gladly accepted his call to preach repentance among his brethren. It was therefore at the age of 69. 69, wow. The age of 69, that Seth was ordained to the priesthood by his father Adam, when it was then proposed to establish among the descendants the order of this priesthood of the Son of God, having for basis all directives which were revealed from heaven, and the sons of men, knowing that this was the standard proposed by God from the beginning, that the presidency of high priesthood should be handed down from father to son, or to a righteous descendant of the promise. If there is no worthy heir to assume the place of his father in the highest office that exists in the hierarchy of the church. The highest office that exists in the hierarchy of the church, the priesthood of the Son of God. Verse 82. Therefore, the priesthood presidency of the Son of God belongs rightfully to the literal descendants of the chosen seed. Okay, to the literal descendants, to the bloodline. And then there are some that can be grafted in, but it rightfully belongs to the literal descendants of the chosen seed, to whom the covenant promises have been and will be made. And this same order that has always existed will exist until the end of the world. Therefore, Adam, the president of the high priesthood in his day, spread the gospel with Seth and came to conquer priesthood on Enos. And came to confer priesthood on Enos, son of Seth, when he was 134 years old. And God called Canaan, the son of Enos, by a messenger in the wilderness when he was 40 years old. And he proceeded to preach repentance to the sons of Cain and the descendants of Adam. And after 47 years, since God had called him on one of his journeys to Lamech, was that Canaan came upon Adam, preaching among the multitude of his descendants. And it was on this occasion that Adam ordained him to the priesthood. He ordained him to the priesthood. Hallelujah. Verse 84. And it came to pass, when Adam was 927 years old, that he gathered together in a place called Adam Ondi Aman, and Enos, and Canaan, and Mahalaleel, and Jared, and Enoch, and Methuselah, all high priests of the holy order of the Son of God, and there bestowed the keys of his presidency on the head of Seth, being blessed by his father 3 years before Adam's death. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. May the Lord have a blessing on the readers, hearers, and doers of his holy word. Hallelujah. Did this edify y'all tonight or this evening? The priesthood of the Son of God. Lamech of CAIN. We're going to pause right here, guys, and we're going to talk about some more stuff, Enoch and so on and so forth. But for right now, we're going to pause. May the Lord have a blessing on all the listeners, all the doers of the work, all those who tuned in. Have favor, have blessing, have love, have mercy, and grace in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach. Till the next time, for now and forevermore, we lift you up, give you the praise, honor, and glory, seal it in our hearts, minds, souls, and spirit. For your name, for the kingdom of God's sake, and to the destroying, to the tearing down of strongholds, and destroy the works of the devil. We love you, we praise you, we worship you. Bless your holy name. Thank you. Till the next time, guys. And this is your host, Brian Anthony Binyah with Beyond Babbitt, over and out. Your host, Brian Anthony Binyah with Beyond Babbitt, over and out. Peace and blessings. Love y'all. Till the next time. Amen.